What's good, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are feeling well and are blessed out there. We're back with another video. Let's get right into it. Today's video is going to be about seeing the big picture. We're talking 30,000 foot view, not just a few workouts or exercises that you stash and save from any social media platform, but having a decent idea of what a really solid plan, program, even if you're working with a coach, that's what we're going to dive into. So the number one thing is knowing where you're trying to go and what's the goal. I would assume a majority of people are going to want long-term results. They're not going to just want to have or see success for a week or for one training block that lasts 4 to 8 weeks and then backslide into what they were doing previously. So sometimes we get in this lens or mind frame, and again, this is not to bash certain bouts of movement or certain events, but it's just, again, to show you the full big picture. So let's use the example of something that's common, that's very high intensity, that makes you feel that dopamine, you feel that high, you feel like you accomplished and did a lot. And that could be at a Orange Theory, a F45 class, something like CrossFit. I will repeat and speak very slowly. None of those events, places, or things are bad. I don't want to put out that kind of energy. Anybody that's doing any of those things, I applaud you because you're moving your body, and that's more than a huge majority of individuals. So kudos. I just want to harp on the parts that they maybe push, that if your goal is long term, you may have to think about in a different lens. You can still do those activities, but maybe in conjunction with other things, and that's what the dialogue is going to be about. So let's use those examples of the F45 class or the Orange Theory. So your heart rate is going to be fairly high. You're going to be doing a decent amount of volume. You may get some strength work. It's not a consensus for all the locations, but some specific locations, they may prioritize that. But you'll get that sensation of really feeling like you were working hard. You may even do certain movements if you're doing the strength work in a different order than what can be conducive. So you might do high reps, smaller muscle groups first, which may not be as favorable, and then you get to some of the strength work towards the middle or even towards the end in some of those classes, because you're working in a group setting and certain people are at different weights, different stations. They're all trying to complete that workout within that 1 hour. So commendable to the coach. They're making everything flow to get people moving their body, and that's more than what they were doing before they walked in through the door. But as far as it being that individual workout or a couple workouts over the span of a couple weeks and you're on this high, you burned a lot of calories, you feel good, I want you to be there and stay there. But when it comes to back to the goal and knowing where you're trying to go, whether that's genuinely building quality muscle mass, building in form, and getting the coordination and skill to do a specific main lift or whatever the case is and really progress in weight over time, this is where that big picture comes into play. So a simple way to conceptualize this is on this whiteboard. So we have a macro cycle, mesocycle, and then microcycle. Whatever plan, program, or coach you are working with, they should have a general idea of what this looks like. Reason why I was going a little bit into detail with some of those events and classes is not to say that they don't have this concept in the back of their mind, but when they are trying to get people in the door and get people that feeling of just that rush and feeling like you did a lot and accomplished a lot, sometimes this idea is sacrificed. And I get it. Shoot, even you see the workout, not even just with those classes and things of that nature. You see that workout on social media. You see somebody that's super jacked, super in shape, super lean, and it may be conducive. It may be something like, you know what, I can use that in conjunction with my other styles of training. I'm going to take that little piece that I liked from them and then I can implement it into my training. But what normally happens is we don't have all the information, or we don't fully understand the overarching theme, and we take it exactly for what it is on surface level. We do it exactly how we see it on whatever social media platform, and it doesn't account for what your goals are and where you're trying to go for the long term. So going back to this concept, simplifying this, macro cycles are typically 6 to 12 months, a long training program. This is for longevity. This is for a specific result. If we were using this example for an athlete, this would be 12 months, or let's say 8 months prepping for a specific competition. Mesocycle is going to be a training block. So this can be like a typical 4-week training block, 8-week training block, maybe even 12 weeks or whatever may have you in that realm. This is basically a subdivision under the macro cycle. This training block can lend towards a specific skill, a specific quality that you're trying to work on, but it all is cohesive and working towards the end goal. Now for the microcycle, this is the day-to-day and the week-to-week within that. So everything is going up the chain. This is more closely associated and related to a specific workout, the specific habits and systems that you're trying to develop that are going to compound over time, which is going to feed into the ultimate goal of that training block. And then that's going to feed into the ultimate goal of the end result. So back to the sport analogy or sport concept or idea, the day-to-day or week-to-week, it can start more in the general. This is like going back to like textbook style information. This can be more general. So microcycle or like the early off-season kind of realm, traditionally it's supposed to be one of those things where you're working on general qualities and you're working on building that armor, going through a long range of motion. They'll typically have the ability to work on some of those things that would make them a little bit more sore, but is also going to make them and their tissues more resilient. So you can tend to do longer duration sets and maybe longer ranges of motion, a little bit more eccentric work. Also get some analgesic related things within that time. That could be done throughout the entire year, but analgesic in the sense of doing longer duration ISOs and kind of getting their body recuperated from a challenging season or a challenging bout, whatever the case is. That would be the focus of developing those systems and things within the day-to-day or week-to-week. Then as you go further into the training blocks are going to resemble whatever qualities are necessary to get that armor prepared for the start of the season or whatever. If it's a few months out, closer from a competition, let's say they're a fighter, that's going to be more within that realm. So now you might not be doing as much volume. You're definitely working on intent throughout the entire time, but you may be doing a little bit less as far as the department of range of motion, still keeping those things resilient and robust as best you can. And then as we're building towards the end of that year, and this is where we're looking to what they say peak, you're trying to be at your peak performance during whatever event or the heightened part of the season is. That's when you're getting closer to that end part of the whole concept or the whole cycle. And the range of motion may be cut just a little bit because we don't want this individual to be sorer than they need to be. We want them the most recovered, the freshest, the sharpest, with the most power, explosiveness, the most strength and resilience possible, because they're going through either an entire season or they're going through an entire camp where they're getting beat up throughout the entire time. So if we're doing really, really long sessions towards this time of the year, it's probably not going to be conducive because they're going to be so beat going into their event or into their games or into their sport that they're not even going to be able to perform at the level that they want to. So this is super specific as far as for like an athlete, but even with general population, it's still somewhat in the same lens or the same focus of maybe they're not going from high volume and all this, longer, deep ranges of motion to then cutting it in half and then preparing for a specific event. But it should be the idea of they're starting from general. Maybe they don't have any training history or they haven't trained in a long time. And it's starting with simple GPP work, general physical preparedness work, where we're just getting all the qualities necessary. We're training a squat, we're training a push and a pull, we're training a hinge, we're training a lunge, we're training a carry, we're training other things that are going to be conducive for their conditioning. And we're starting in a general state. We may be starting with even lesser volume, and then we're building to where we can handle higher loads and higher thresholds and higher capacities. And then we get to a point where we're doing movements that are the same weight as their body weight. Those are its own progressions that are leading and lending towards that end goal of being able to do a squat like 1.5 times their body weight, or being able to do those things. And that's not the holy grail. Maybe that's a goal for that individual, but whatever gets them to do the thing that they want to do, whether it's their first High Rocks competition, whether it's I just want to play soccer with my son and not feel like I'm going to, keel over, like all of it has got to flow in that trajectory, in that path. And that's just something I wanted to harp on, so you guys have the idea of no matter who you're with, whether you're a gym partner, whether the gym bro that you just talked to last week, and they give you a really tough workout and you're like, man, like so-and-so knows their stuff. Like I'm super exhausted and they annihilated my muscles. And it's like, that's great if they do that a few times, but it's like, what is that really getting you? You have to start asking these questions and these pieces of the puzzle. Now, how I described it sounds super nice and perfect on paper. Even if I can get that individual and I know that I have the end goal in mind, whether it's 8 months or 12 months, is it gonna go exactly what it looks like on paper? Of course not. By week 2, month 2, so-and-so is gonna have the craziest work week of their entire life, or so-and-so's family member is going to get sick and they're gonna need to be a caregiver. Like, things are gonna completely change and derail the path that you're on. But when you have an idea of what the entire trajectory and path is supposed to look like, you can still see those situations and be able to improv right on the spot and make adjustments, because it's still going to lend and have you go in the direction that you're supposed to. But if you're just going for novelty and you're going for really intense exercises and sessions and things of that nature, when you do burn yourself out before those events even happen, and then that's your fail-safe and that's all you know when even crazy life situations happen, how do you find a way to get yourself moving without shooting yourself in the foot and killing yourself? If you have an idea of the map and the end destination, you'll be able to navigate those rigors and tough situations and obstacles, and that's still going to get you towards your goal to do whatever event or whatever your heart desires. So I hope that was clear. Definitely want to encourage you to continue to research, ask those questions. Not only ask me in the comments, but ask the people that are around you that, care about health and care about getting stronger and care about getting better at a skill, care about just their health in general, and making sure that it's conducive and that it's pushing them forward for work, for their family, for their life, for an event, for a competition. Explore, discover, like I always say. But that is all I have. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see y'all next time. Have a great day, y'all. Peace.